welcome back to another episode of JP and the Beanstalk.
You bet. There's a great energy in the gym. We're back, we're here, and we are stoked to do so. Beans, how the heck are you?
I am good. Tired, but good.
Yeah, same. I had a very full weekend. Don't know about you. In fact, I do know about you. You did too. I went and shot some firearms this weekend.
No, you didn't tell me that.
First time in a while. I know. Breaking news right on the pod. My brother-in-law is a gun enthusiast, and he invited me to go shooting with him. He provided all the guns and ammo, so how can a guy say no to that? It was great. It was great. We shot a wide variety of weaponry.
See, I shoot firearms every day with these two bad boys.
Mm-hmm. There you
For those of you who can't see and are just listening, it's my fists.
It's his arm guns.
Yes. Boom. I call them thunder and lightning. Lightning's the right hand because it will strike twice in the same place if you're not careful.
I am having nothing but Ron Burgundy as Anchorman running through my dome right now, where he is doing curls shirtless in his office.
I take that as a compliment.
You should. It's a very similar and extraordinary energy. So happy for you. Yeah. So anyway, my shoulder's a little sore from where I had to brace certain pieces of weaponry. Shot a slug out of a shotgun. That was like a freaking cannon.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, that was exciting. So it was a good time. It was a good time. But hey, we're here to talk all things comics and beyond. We're excited to dive into it. Beans, without further ado, let's dive in, shall we?
Head first.
Okay.
In shallow water. I mean,
right.
Deep water.
Right to the wading pool.
Yes.
Right into it. Well, a recurring topic that we are continuing to just jump headfirst into is the one thing that we would change about different characters in the comics. And again, when we're discussing these characters, to set the table here, we are talking about the comics in particular. So not necessarily the movie iterations. We may, of course, reference the movies because they are a helpful reference point. But in general, we are speaking primarily towards the source material. So
also,
yes,
if it has happened and we didn't know about it, we are not encyclopedias. Okay? So buzz off. And if we came up with it and they already did it, well, it was a great idea.
Clearly, it was our idea first. So
correct.
Let's just set the table straight there.
I agree with that.
Once again, we will do one character from DC, one character from Marvel. So just spreading all the love and all the joy. So without further ado, one thing you change, slight twist this time, rather than it being a single individual, we're going group version, so called the family event. Let's start at the DC side, Riles. Green Lanterns, because yes, there are multiples of them. Green Lanterns. What is one thing that you would change about the Green Lanterns in comics?
This was an easy one for me, to be honest.
Okay.
I think the fact that they have to charge is stupid.
Interesting.
So I would change that feature.
Where the
okay,
rings no longer have to charge against the lantern.
Correct. Now. And I think it fully goes off of willpower.
Okay.
Because I think it would be really interesting to watch Green Lanterns get into a fight. Let's say there's some B-tier Green Lantern going up against, we'll just say, Sinestro, for instance, right?
Right.
I would like the idea, instead of him losing the ring because Sinestro kills him, he lost the willpower to fight.
Sure.
And therefore, because he has zero willpower, the ring's like, oh,
Goodbye,
exactly.
You're toast.
Because first of all, how badass would it be for a villain to come in and pummel like a Hal Jordan so bad that he no longer has any willpower.
Right.
He's just defeated.
Just gets psyched out.
Correct. Defeated mentally, emotionally, physically, to the point where he's like, I can't win this fight no matter what. Willpower hits zero. It's like, oh. And it either just disappears completely off the ring or finds a different host that has willpower available to it. So it's almost like feeding off the energy of the emotional. Because the fact that you just have to like hit it with the lantern, don't get me wrong. The oath is badass. Okay?
Oath is great.
But use the oath right before you're going to get into a fight or right before you're about to finish it.
Sure.
Because that's where it hits in and you're like, oh, this is epic, right? Like they're about to die, and then they start saying the oath, and that gives them the willpower to continue. Sure. And it's a self-recharge in that sense.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But just the fact that they have to, poke at the lantern themselves and be like, oh, it's done. I just feel like that's... It's silly.
It's not doing it for you. It's not doing it for you.
And back in the day, it was once a day, and then because I did my research on this, before we did this.
Nice.
And now it's just it's not specific when it runs out of battery, right? But I feel like it also promotes this idea that you also need to be mentally well over just physically well to be a Green Lantern, right?
Well, especially with the color spectrum,
right?
And what I mean by that. Okay, for those of you that maybe have not read the Green Lantern comics, especially of late, because this is within the last 10 or 15 years that this developed, where you have Green Lanterns who are drawing their strength from the power of will. You have the Yellow Lanterns, which are drawing their strength from the power of fear. Then you have an additional 5 Lantern Corps that are drawing their strengths for their respective power rings through other I'm just going to call them topics on the emotional spectrum. So you've got, we already said, will, fear, rage, avarice, which is just a fancy word for greed, which is kind of an odd one. There's hope, love, and gosh darn it, what is the 7th one? Man, I thought I was going to go the distance.
It's the Indigo Core, and it is...
I think that's the hope. I think Indigo is...
No, that's blue.
You're right, blue is hope.
Indigo is... because they speak an entirely different language than nobody else.
Yep.
And I want to say it's integrity, but that sounds...
Compassion.
There you go.
Compassion. There we go.
Integrity.
It's actually a good guess.
It's not terrible. You know what?
It's actually a good guess. And then, of course, you've got the Black Lantern Corps of Death, the White Lantern Corps of Life, but it's a little bit on the extreme side in both regards. So I do like the concept that you're proposing of, hey, have the member of that corps, the stronger or more sincere their draw and attachment is to that particular aspect of the emotional spectrum, the more powerful they will be.
Well, and we've seen it be overcharged before.
Yep.
That's happened frequently where it's oh, Green Lantern, 200%. And it's oh, of course he just did that, right? But because Hal Jordan's
quite the plot.
Right. Hal Jordan's made his own ring from his own willpower. So he's probably the ideal Green Lantern in the sense of he just has an endless supply of willpower. But I also like that idea for all the other emotions too, because imagine if you're going up against Atrocitus and you just get to make him laugh.
Sure.
And he just loses the ring.
Sure.
Because he's just no longer angry.
Right.
I feel it just... in a weird way, it gives you these different tactics of just getting them off the emotion they're feeding off of.
Yep.
And using that to your advantage instead.
Yeah.
Right. So I just say I think the opportunities for more creative wins per se, depending on the emotion at hand, right?
Right.
Is what really interests me in that aspect. So I would get rid of charging entirely.
Yeah, and I think you could totally repurpose the lanterns as well, because 2 things that are important. You have to keep the lanterns because otherwise it's just the greens. So we do want the Green Lanterns, but maybe it's just and part of the purpose of the lanterns themselves are to not just recharge the ring, but they're recharging the ring because they are tethered back to the home base of Oa, the planet Oa for the Green Lanterns. And for every other Lantern Corps, they have their own, again, appropriately colored lanterns, home base, so on and so forth. But maybe that's all that it needs to be is hey, whether it's once a day or set whatever the time frame is, the ring needs to be reconnected to the lantern, not for the sake of a recharge like a battery, but just a reconnection to maintain just a tether. That makes sense?
Yeah, so I wouldn't even do that.
0 to 10. I think you got to keep the lanterns involved somehow.
I agree with you. Yeah. I just don't want it attached to the power of the ring itself. So I don't know what it would look like.
Okay. Still works.
I would like it to be something entirely separate. So if it's just
charger.
Right. If it's just strictly a communication device, or maybe it's a beacon essentially, where it's this sector is covered by this Green Lantern or something like that. or it's in charge of the willpower of the entire planet, maybe something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to repurpose it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So
I like that.
I just don't like it attached to the ring specifically.
Yep.
But I agree. The lanterns are cool. Don't get rid of the physical lantern. They just need to figure out a different purpose for said lantern.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Love it. Okay. Good take. Solid take. My take on the Green Lanterns is less is more. And specifically, I mean less humans. There are too many human beings that have become Green Lanterns. And I'm not hating on any one or two particular Green Lanterns here. The reason this flummoxes me is that in the Green Lantern lore, okay, and this is the whole paradigm of if you're a fictional story, you're going to set some fictional rules, you got to follow the fictional rules. Here's the rules in the Green Lantern note, okay? There are 2 lanterns per sector. Earth, for example, is sector 2814, right? So you've got, now it's part of sector 2814. It's not only Earth. So Hal Jordan, when he becomes a Green Lantern, is the first human being to be part of the Green Lantern Corps. And it's this big deal, right? Because Earthlings aren't highly regarded for their robustness, for being particularly renowned in terms of willpower. And so the fact that Hal Jordan climbs the ranks so rapidly is fairly remarkable. Well, it becomes a lot less remarkable after Hal Jordan, Guy Gardner, John Stewart, Kyle Rayner. There's 2 other characters in the New 52, Baz, and I forget the gal's name.
There is Kyle Rayner. There is Simon Baz, Jessica Cruz.
There it is, Jessica Cruz. That was the one I couldn't remember. And again, not picking on any one of these, but it's a bit ridiculous to first tell us that there are only 2 Green Lanterns assigned to each sector. It's like, excuse me, that's several humans right out of the gate, and that's certainly more than 2. And where are we assigning them again? Oh, I'm sorry. They actually all end up guarding Earth at one point in time. And there's some fudging of the rules here that happens where Hal Jordan is evidently no longer a Green Lantern. Therefore, it creates a gap for Simon Baz and for Jessica Cruz to step into. But the point is, it's become a watered down result. Okay. Part of what makes the Green Lantern Corps so great is that it encompasses and represents almost the entire known universe. In other words, you have species and individuals from everywhere with all different shapes, sizes, backgrounds. Leaning into that is one of the best things that Jeff Johns did with his Green Lantern run as far as fleshing out the different species that are represented in the Corps. And yet he also simultaneously just brought more and more humans into the mix. It's just, you got to follow your own rules. Less of the humans, please. Just less. Let's do that. So that's my take.
Well, to jump on that too, I just Googled it because I was curious. How many planets are in this sector? Mm-hmm. There are 34 planets. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Plenty.
What are the odds that all of them are human?
Right.
Little to none. So correct. Why don't you have like a Martian or something else, right? Mm-hmm. Or to see, we talked about this last pod with the Flash and how there's so many Flashes.
Yes.
Why not with the Green Lanterns have Hal Jordan and John? At this point, Hal Jordan and John Stewart should not be in charge of the sector. They should be their own.
Right.
They should almost act as the Guardians or be on some council of higher power because they have done so much and are trailblazers for
they're not Green Lanterns around anymore.
Right. Yep. So that leaves you Guy, Kyle, and personally Kyle has even evolved out of that. So you got Simon, Jessica, and Guy Gardner.
Yep.
So one of those 3 for sure should just be one of them.
Yeah.
Right. And then have the other one be a different alien from a different planet, whatever that may be.
Guy Gardner is the person that never gets promoted. You know,
right?
She's just perpetually stuck in the same spot, always rubbing people the wrong way. Never quite. He's really good at the job, but nobody is going. We have to promote him because he's done such a great job. There's always enough flaws there that you can latch onto and say, hey, we're going to keep you here for another beat, bud.
Well, and that's even been like that. See, and that's when they were talking about the new Green Lantern show coming out, how they're going to have Hal be the old.
Right.
Have that be Guy Gardner instead, right? And have Hal and John already be semi-established, however you want to do it, right?
Sure.
But, like, yeah, for me, I think it's crazy that there are 7. There's probably even more than the ones that we've listed at this point, right? How come we haven't gotten...
It's expanded so rapidly. Like in a very small period of years, it went from the handful to 2 handfuls.
Right.
Pretty quick.
So why... Here's the other thing. Why aren't you getting... Because we have a Star Sapphire from Earth. Mm-hmm. Why aren't we getting a Blue Lantern from Earth instead, right? One of them swaps and is now a Blue Lantern.
Yep.
Just to give us something different, right? I mean, Guy Gardner became a Red Lantern for a little while. And from what I understand, that went over really well for him. I like... And the character... Right. But like... You also saw him dealing with his anger, because that's one of his main things, is he's just an angry dude on top of the willpower. Right. So to have that like variety of like, oh, they were a Green Lantern at one point.
Yeah.
They can still thrive and succeed as a different color in a different core. You just
need,
really silly. You need more of a variety.
Yeah, you do.
And it's exactly what we talked about last pod, where it came down to legacy. Mm-hmm. You have to let these characters stand out on their own. I liked Kyle Rayner being a White Lantern.
Yep.
I liked that idea because he's the only one. He has to navigate all of these powers outside of it, right? So there you go. Yeah. That's where I'm at.
Totally agree. Love that. All right, so that is the DC side. There's our take on the Green Lantern. It's the one thing that we would change. Let's transition over into the Marvel side. Again, group family theme here. X-Men. Again, broadly, we're not picking out any one individual character. X-Men as a group. I'm going to go first here. No more soap opera, please. Less infighting, okay? Let's actually pick something external to fight. So instead of the junior high style shenanigans of who kissed who and who likes who and who has a crush, it's not compelling, no matter what. Particularly, though, when you have a inherently fascinating group of people who are dealing with power sets that they didn't choose, that they struggle to control, and then they're battling with the question of the external pressures and dislike that tends to come with being an X-Man, and how do I want to use my abilities in the most effective way possible. So to water it down to this truly like juvenile storytelling level of, well, you know, Scott's kind of got the hots for Emma and she has for him, and oh, look at that, there's Logan again, just sneaking his hairy paw near. But it's like, what are we doing? This isn't compelling. That's not why I'm reading these characters. And then when I'm going to use this euphemism intentionally, climaxes into the X-Men are just fighting each other. That's right, cringe heavily there. It's even less compelling. I don't want to see X-Men fighting X-Men. I want to see X-Men fighting Skrulls, or X-Men fighting the evil brotherhood of mutants, right? Like, let's see the good mutants fighting the bad mutants, not Scott Summers fighting freaking Logan. Let's grow up a little bit here. That would be really fantastic if we could do that, please. Can we please do that? There you go. There's my one.
So I would add on to that, but mine is similar.
Yep.
Not quite into the romance portion, but
it's just so.
I am tired of. I want them to fight someone different because I am so tired of the focus on all of their fights being racism. Because I feel like at some point you have to evolve past that, right? Like the Brotherhood of Mutants, for example. Right. Their whole opposition from the X-Men is that the mutants are the superior race, right? Sure. So you have them. Sure. And then you have the group who made the Sentinels, the Purifiers, right? And they think humans are the supreme race. And then you have Apocalypse, who thinks the strong is the ones that should survive. So all those three, obviously Apocalypse doesn't care what you are. One is the extreme one way, the other one is the extreme the other way.
Yep.
I don't care at this point. We've seen it play out so many times. So I want some like new different enemies. So here's some lists that I had, or just some ideas. I wrote the High Evolutionary as one, and he's probably been an X-Men villain, but I like the idea of him, instead of wanting these mutants because they are the superior human race or whatever,
right,
going after specific mutants for their genetic codes, and then, you know, kind of what Mr. Sims
trying to extrapolate and enhance what's already there.
Maybe he's making a new race out of all of that, right?
Right.
And that's similar to what Mr. Sinister does.
Yep.
But having it be like this outside source, right?
Yep.
Or I just said aliens in general. I think the Skrulls is primary, right? They've had beef with the Brood before. They've had beef with Shi'ar.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So, like, it's there.
Why can't the X-Men be the space Avengers? Right? They're extraordinarily adaptable, diverse. Send them out there. Get them on the frontier.
Right. I have the Leader, one of the Hulk's villains. I said a new Brotherhood, but just like they just happen to be mutants. They don't really care about, like, because here's the thing that I think they're missing. Spider-Man, a lot of his villains are just bad dudes committing crime because they like stealing stuff.
Guys.
They like stealing stuff. The X-Men don't have that.
Yeah, they relied so much on the infighting piece.
And here's the other part with the X-Men that just bothers me to a point, because it's evolved past X-Men. It's just mutants as a whole.
Yep.
Where, especially this last iteration, they all joined up together and teamed up.
Sure.
And now it's to the point where I feel like every X-Men character is now a gray character, right? There's no black anymore. There's no white anymore. Like, there's no good or bad. This guy's just a good dude. This guy's just a bad dude. They're all like this weird, like, neutral, like, oh yeah, we're going to do this to benefit us here, but here we're going to do this to benefit. And it's like, what happened to you guys just wanting to do good?
Yep.
Despite of what other people thought.
Yeah.
Like, you're out there saving the world.
Right.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
You're not, like, looking out specifically for your race because your race needs to be preserved.
Yep.
Like, yeah. So, I don't know. I'm just tired of I even wrote down maybe a serial killer. Like a mutant serial killer. And he's just killing mutants. Not because they are mutants, but you know what I'm saying?
Right. He's just a bad dude.
Like, he's just, like, going after super-powered individuals. Yeah. Where is that? Like, the line is, like, so blurred anymore, even with, like, Storm and I think Nightcrawler's probably the one that stayed the most pure throughout all of this.
Yep.
And that's because they based him in Christianity, which is a whole nother rabbit hole we can go down. But, like, we talked about this too before with the whole Krakoan age, right? They pretty much were like, hey, the whole throuple idea is a great idea. Let's expand on that even more. And let's normalize it. And that's weird to me.
Yeah.
It should not be a focus. Romantic, like, parts of the story should not be the main focus.
No.
I don't care about that.
No.
I don't. I'm there to watch fights and read compelling stories of characters evolving past who they were, character growth.
You're looking for character growth and you're looking for action when you're reading comics.
I want to see Wolverine take his claws and stab somebody in the chest 3 times. That's what I want to see. Yeah. And so Wolverine was the ideal gray X-Men character, right? Who was, despite all of the bad that he's been through and done, he tries to do good, but no matter what comes down to it, he's still an anti-hero, essentially.
Yep.
Like, he's borderline anti-hero.
Yep.
Not afraid to kill, and the X-Men kept him from turning. The whole Deadpool and Wolverine movie focused on this, right? Where he was trying to be the man that Xavier thought he could be.
Right.
And then now it's like all of this, and I get that humans are like this gray, but like, this is supposed to be a
even that
more idealistic
place. Even that's a really limited thread to say that, hey, humans are against mutants. Okay, well, who's more powerful here? Mutants. So as long as mutants can get their poop in a group and be semi-organized and unified, the humans aren't going to succeed at taking them out, right? And you can have, I also think just in general, the idea of, well, the humans made a robot. Okay. That's got to be limited. Like, truly, that can't be the secret weapon answer. The humans made a robot and that beat the mutants. And that's what the comics have done so frequently. And it's very strange. It's almost like the comics aren't sure what to do with the X-Men, and giving them, I love what you're saying, give them somebody to fight. And I think in a lot of ways we're saying some of the same things here. Like, give them an actual opponent that they can focus on. And you can have internal conflict. I'm not suggesting not to have that, but that can't be the main crux of what you're trying to use to draw us in to these characters, is the internal conflict. That can be a part of it. That's part of any team, but that can't be the whole. In other words, it can't just be a civil war on repeat. And too often, I think that's what it becomes.
Well, with Wolverine and Cyclops, yeah, that's an interesting like internal battle of leadership that they have. But at the same time, they respect each other enough, again, for the most part, until like recent years probably. But for the most part, they still understand each other to the point where they're like, okay, we are two different people, but if we didn't work together, it'd be way worse. Like, we are better together, for sure.
Yeah, no question.
So, yeah, I'm ready for a revamp. We're at the point now where X-Men characters have been on the Avengers. So it's just like, and I think part of the problem too is, let's be honest, if the X-Men could be in their own universe entirely and not have anything to do with the Avengers. I mean, they kind of don't already. So I think that's, maybe it's integrating them into like other normal superheroes, and instead of just being like, oh, hey, X-Men are just this, maybe they need to incorporate themselves with those other super teams or whatever it needs to be. I don't know. They
haven't known what to do with themselves ever since the events of Avengers Disassembled, and then the House of M, when the Scarlet Witch said no more mutants. And that really happened. That almost all of mutantdom was just eliminated. They haven't known, Marvel Comics hasn't known what to do with those characters since that time, like how to bring them back in a legitimate way. It was such a bold, and bold's not even a strong enough word. I'm going to say reckless move. Say, hey, we're just going to eliminate all the mutants. It's like, because you immediately put yourself into this corner of, unless you have decided that taking away all the mutants is just a piece of a greater story, that you already know how you're going to tell that story, then you're really in trouble. And I think that's what Marvel did, is they saw the pitch from Brian Michael Bendis, and they're like, wow, that's incredible. People are going to go nuts over this. Let's do it. Let's take away all the mutants. And they never answered the question ahead of time of, but how are we going to bring them back, and what capacity we're going to bring them back? They just closed their eyes, pulled the trigger, and then looked at the aftermath and said, whew, okay, pretty messy. Guys, what do we do? And they don't know. They still don't know.
I mean, think about Avengers versus X-Men. Great story, but look at what they did to Cyclops. Like, they turned him into Magneto 2.0, essentially. And we're like, and don't get me wrong, like, the Phoenix has been known to corrupt people, but they took Cyclops to a whole nother level even before he gets the Phoenix Force. Because he was at that point now where he's like, I have to save my people.
But again, when that's like your best X-Men story in a while, which it is, and it is a good story, but when that's the best one, the X-Men are fighting the Avengers, it's a problem for the X-Men. It's not a problem for the Avengers, because they've had many other great and worthwhile stories before and after. But for the X-Men, that's really been the peak over the last decade. It's like, you need an actual opponent that's not a good guy to fight against.
And in that fault, right, they make the X-Men the villains of the story. Right? The only ones who aren't are Wolverine and Storm. Storm is actually a victim of the whole thing, because after Namor floods Wakanda, she gets pretty much divorced.
Not a good look.
Black Panther's like, nah, you're done. For no reason.
Not great.
Right?
Not great.
So those are the only two, and Hope Summers, obviously. But, like, how are you not working with the Avengers at that point? Just be like, hey, I think it could do this with the right. Is there a way we can work this out? And no. You're just going to take it for yourselves and then pretty much threaten to rule the planet when it takes over all five of you.
Yeah, pretty tough. Pretty tough. So, a lot of potential there, and it has been untapped for a while now. All right, hey, good takes on the X-Men. All right, let's keep pressing on here. So, a couple additional segments here. We're going to do a little JP's point of view, a little Beans beef. where I'm going to riff on today, my point of view, I had the opportunity over the weekend to take all my kids to Transformers 1.
Which, by the way, I thought I got invited to that, and
I'm not saying we're not going in.
Not saying we're not going in. Bring me.
Not saying we're not going in.
Oh, I'm indifferent, but I couldn't be more indifferent. But when you said you went, I was like, well, that's odd, because Wes invited me.
It was 100% a game time decision. It was one of those days where the wife needed some solo time to crank through her business. I'm like, how do I get all the kids out of here? And I'm like, let's go do something bold. We're going to go to the Transformers movie at 11:40 a.m. on a Saturday. Let me tell you, we had the whole theater to ourselves. It was glorious.
It's actually awesome.
It was actually fantastic. Tell you what, I was in general indifferent about this movie ahead of time. Okay, but it's an animated Transformers movie. It's rated PG, and as a dad of young kids, I'm going, hey, this looks accessible. Good chance to watch a movie with the kiddos. Let's do that. And I'll tell you what, it delivered. I don't know that I necessarily got this from the trailers, but the animation throughout the movie, I thought held up really well. Like, it looked fantastic. And I'm not saying, hey, watch the trailers and you'll see what I mean. I think the trailers look perfectly fine, but the more you see the movie in the actual movie, the more it impresses you. Okay, there are some really sick looking shots. There's not a single moment where you're going, they rushed that one. That's a little cheaply done. So it was, from a production quality standpoint, very well done. The story was surprisingly worthwhile. Okay, this is supposed to be the origin of Optimus Prime and Megatron. Again, not a story that ahead of time I'm going, I need to see this. I need to understand how they got to where they got to at the stage where we're introduced to them. But how they fleshed out Cybertron as a planet, the role of the primes in general. I thought it was really, truly a worthwhile story. Like, if you're going to tell a story that no one was necessarily asking for, make sure it's worth their time. And it was. The voice cast was really solid. Chris Hemsworth as Optimus Prime was a nice fit, I thought. Oh my gosh. It's got to leave the cast list so I don't forget anybody. Scarlett Johansson stepped in as a lead up. Steve Buscemi as Starscream was freaking hilarious because his voice gets messed up a good like halfway through his character's introduction. So it's very garbly and fantastic, as you'd expect from Starscream. Brian Tyree Henry as Megatron, terrific. Keegan-Michael Kay kind of steals the show as Bumblebee. Yeah. He's elite. Lawrence Fishburne, because he has the voice of God, drops in as one of the primes. So he's terrific. It was overall just really, really sound. And I remember, did you and I go to DC League of Super Pets together?
No.
Okay. That movie was super underwhelming for me. And again, that was a PG animated movie that frankly didn't know what it wanted to be. I remember watching that movie, Beans, and I'm like, this is trying to be like an adult comedy, but it's rated PG and it's supposed to be seen by kids as well, but they're making a lot of adult jokes. It wasn't the case in this movie. So I thought
That's
Transformers
nice.
1, yeah, I thought it hit the sweet spot of, hey, it's for the kids. There's plenty of action and activity here to keep the adults engaged, and the story crosses, granted, the very low bar of often animated story foolishness to where it's like, no, this is actually a good, worthwhile tale. So I would take more of that. Don't know if there is an intent on the part of Hasbro to keep pumping these out. I'm sure it's going to depend on how well or not well the movie does at the box office, but overall, I was pleasantly surprised. So there you go. There's my plug for Transformers 1. That was fun. It was good.
Well, I think before we get into our beef, we just talk about the whole trailer first. Not to cut you off if I cut you off.
No. Do it.
Yeah. So Venom 3 trailer came out.
Yes.
And the final one. And it gave us a little bit more information.
Yep.
And it revealed the villain.
As you had prophesied a mere pod ago.
Unfortunately.
Yep.
Knull has been announced as the main bad guy. And I'm angry.
He's going to get maybe 10 minutes of combined screen time. Maybe.
here's my problem with it. First of all, it's Sony. And if anybody's like, oh yeah, cool, Knull's gonna be great. No. Yep. Think about this real quick for me. Do you remember the first movie was fine? Okay, actually probably Venom 1 was better than Venom 2. Let's be real. They had Riot as the villain.
Yep.
Fine.
Yep.
That was fine.
Yep.
Everybody gets hyped for Carnage. Remember that roller coaster ride of whatever that was? Carnage is dead. Stupid. But let's be real. They butchered that character who's supposed to be butchering everybody.
Terribly.
Right.
Yep.
Like, let him loose. And they decided to make it PG-13. Now, Knull, who is God level. Okay, this dude is like, Gore the God Butcher was supposed to be a god. Knull was supposed to be his god, essentially. Because his sword, Gore's sword, was from Knull himself. Yep. This is the originator. This dude is a bad ass. And it's going to take more than just... Now, in the comics, it took more than just Venom to beat him. It took Thor's hammer merged with the Silver Surfer's board to take this dude out. Okay? He's sending all of these symbiotes to Earth. I don't want to see Venom knock this dude out in 10 minutes.
Correct.
I don't want to see that. I want Knull, if he's going to come to Earth, I want Knull to eviscerate literally everyone in his path, because that is the level that he needs to be. Gore's problem, remember, he didn't do enough killing. He is the God Butcher. We saw him butcher...
0 gods. We actually saw him butcher 0.
1.
Which one?
In the beginning.
I'm sorry, you're right.
He decapitates the dude in the beginning.
Yep.
And then we're like, because I remember seeing that scene and be like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And then we got none of it
done for the rest of the movie.
We got the end result of another one.
Yep.
And the hand chopped off of Sif.
Yep.
We missed that whole fight, which makes no sense at all.
Yep.
And now you're having Knull, who's Thanos level, higher than Thanos without the Infinity Gauntlet. Well, I'm nervous. I don't know what you're going to do. I was all for Toxin. I was all for Toxin being the main villain here. That would have been perfect. Have the symbiotes invade, have Toxin be the 1v1, and then they realize that they have to team up to fight off the rest of the hordes of the symbiotes, and then Venom and him have to separate to better the Earth. End of trilogy. Call it a day. But now... Because here's the deal, the other thing that people don't probably realize, when Venom defeats Knull, Venom takes Knull's place as the god. I don't want Eddie at this point in time to be the god of symbiotes.
Yeah.
I don't want it. It doesn't make sense. Because guess what? If you're going to end it there, that's a weird spot to end it on. It really is, though, if you think about it. Right?
100%.
Knull should be Doom level. He should be Thanos level, and I'm not talking about, like, power because he's stronger than all of them. I'm talking, like, big bad. You focus a whole phase on this guy. That's the level he's at, and this just is a money grab. That is exactly what this is. This is a money grab, because they're like, oh, no, he was so good 3 years ago. That's great. Let's use him.
It's such a strange money grab. And it shows, unfortunately, that, as expected, Sony hasn't learned anything, because they totally shot their wad with Carnage, where it's an hour-and-a-half movie where he's not in it very much, and you have him dead by the end of it. None of those things should be allowed to happen. If he's going to be in it, if Carnage was going to be in the second movie, it needs to be at least 2 hours. And no matter what, he can't be dead at the end of the second movie. It does nobody in your story, in your world, any good. He can be defeated by Venom temporarily, but he can't actually be dead. And as you're saying, now you're introducing a character in Knull who is exponentially more powerful, who is at this elite of the elites, like top 5, top 10, in all of Marveldom. And you know he's going to end up being beaten
murdered.
And
he'll probably die.
Not straight up killed by the end of this movie.
And it won't make sense.
No, it's just a repeat and a redressing of what we saw with Let There Be Carnage. It is too bad. It just doesn't need to be that way.
Because if you think about it, Carnage should have killed Eddie's ex. Eddie's ex should have been murdered by the hands of Carnage. Mm-hmm. Her boyfriend or whatever should have been murdered. Like, he should have murdered everybody. And because then you would have added at least this, like, more of a lethal protector vibe to him, because it makes more sense now why he's, like, okay with killing some people.
Sure.
Like,
sure. He needs to be a street-level character. The fact that Sony is just breaking the Earth ceiling and going, let's just get out into space. It does not bode well for this movie. I mean, my expectations weren't high because of Sony. Like, I think Tom Hardy is a great fit. I think he has wonderful intentions for the character, but he has chosen the wrong partner in Sony to make this movie together.
I think it's
a tough fit.
To me, it's a lot like the Ryan Reynolds Fox fit at first with Deadpool, where he's like, oh, if I ever want to do this again, I'm going to have to take this now.
Yep. And
I think he's kind of like, hopefully I get into the MCU, because that would be great, right? Sure. I think Sydney Sweeney learned, because I think she's in rumors to be Black Cat, which is way better for her than the other Spider-Woman version that she was. But like, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, because I think if you kill him in some dumb way where like a spaceship blows him up, because it'll be something like that, right? It'll just be like a blaze of glory. He's going to blow up, get incinerated. Venom will like sacrifice himself, but he won't. Correct. Right? And by the way, if this all plays out, I'm a genius. But like, I would rather he cut a deal with Knull and then Knull leave.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, there's no. That's the only scenario.
There shouldn't be any scenario where Knull actually dies,
and he will. Mm-hmm. But like, I was totally content with Toxin. I was totally content with the other like 5 symbiotes they always use with like Shriek and Phage and the other 3 with those like emo goth names, right? But man, it grinds my gears. And I think they said Norman Reedus is rumored to be him, which good casting. That's not a bad casting. See, that's the thing with Sony. They don't do...
It's just a waste. Waste of a character.
Sony does not do bad castings. Correct. Give them credit there, but they're going to butcher it. Oh my God, it's terrible. No! Dialogue is crap. Yeah. So I am not looking forward to that. I think it took me out of the movie, because I knew originally going in, I was like, oh, you know what? This is not going to be a great movie, but at least...
You can go in and be entertained.
Right. Exactly. Because you get that with the first Venom. I really enjoyed the first one. The second one... As disappointing as the final fights were, I was still, like, invested in the story at least a little bit. But, like, dude, you took me out of it. 100%. Because Venom can't win this unscathed.
No. Here's part of what's fascinating, and you spoke to this a little bit, as far as the Ryan Reynolds approach of, hey, if I ever want to play this character in the long term, I need to take the short term hit. I just genuinely wonder how it is that these actors and actresses that have plenty in their filmography where they have some say and some influence over the roles that they choose to take. I mean, Tom Hardy, more than any of Sydney Sweeney or Aaron Taylor Johnson, even, we're going to see as Craven here later this year. It's like, I don't think you have to do that to yourselves. You can wait until it's a better movie and therefore a better role. But that's my perspective. I'd be entirely off there. Who knows? Who knows?
Like, at least with Craven too, you're going into that movie and you're like, okay, I'm not expecting much from it.
Yep.
He's fighting Rhino.
Yep.
Rhino, I can deal with. If Craven beats Rhino, fantastic. That's kind of what he should be doing. Craven should beat the Rhino, because that's his whole thing, is hunting animals, and that's like another level, because it's a human animal hybrid thing. And you're like, oh, I'm okay with that. That makes sense.
Right.
But he's not fighting the god of rhinos. It's not a god rhino where it's like, oh, I'm rampaging through and nobody can stop me.
Hey, you know what I know? We're gonna go see it.
Craven or Venom?
Both.
Yeah,
yes, we are. One thing I did want to pull from the trailer was Reese Ifans.
Yes,
is present.
The Lizard
as hippie guitar player. Definitely the Lizard. He's going to be the Lizard.
You think so?
Movie. I'm not saying he's going to make an appearance as the Lizard, but he is certainly Kurt Connors.
Does he have both hands?
He does in the trailer. I think he's gonna be. He's gotta be.
Sony's not that smart.
Touché.
Sony probably forgot that he was the Lizard.
Wait, we cast this guy already? What was this?
Well, okay, here's another question. Did the Lizard die in Amazing Spider-Man, or is he alive?
Gosh, it's been too long since I've seen that. I don't think he died. But that's just really tapping into the depths of my memory bank.
Because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
And
listen, the Lizard's going to be in it, whether or not Sony knows. Who knows?
Oh dear God! Can you imagine?
So heads are getting chopped off.
Hold on, time out 1 sec. Can you imagine if he actually is Kurt Connors, and at the end of the Venom 3 movie, like Morbius comes back and he's like, "It's time."
Yep.
He's like, "You hate Spider-Man too?"
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Well, yeah, of course I hate."
Michael Keaton is the Vulture. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then they pull Craven. He's like, "Do you hate Spider-Man?" And Craven's like, "Never heard of him, but yeah, screw that guy." Because that was the same with Morbius. Morbius has never
terrible.
Seen him. Oh, that guy? Yeah. Because how does Michael Keaton even know which Spider-Man exists in that world? Anyways, I digress. Okay, this is just there's bullet holes everywhere. Okay,
so many canon-size holes.
Sony, for the love of God, this is where we're gonna end this rant. Okay, this irritation. Sony, sell Spider-Man to Marvel for the love of God.
Get out and get out now.
You're not be done with movies. You're done. Thank you for the Raimi trilogy. Thank you for Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. Thank you for the Spider-Verse movies. Yep. Be done. Yep. Okay, you did enough. Yep. You're done. Go home.
You really don't want to be here. Just get out. Just get out. It's okay.
No.
Just get out.
You are the Dallas Cowboys of movie companies. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because you're just throwing out the name and hoping that you get the money.
Yeah, you can't do it.
But you're going out there, and every time it's an 8-for-9 season. Okay, you did middle ground. Sometimes you pull out a 6-10, and you expect us to be happy with it, and you're losing
every time. Feels like that was perhaps channeling a little bit of your real Dallas Cowboys.
It came out a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm not going to say that directly was the case.
I'm gripping this so hard right now.
Yep.
You wanted this, though. You wrote down.
We got the beans.
You wrote down for the second pod in a row, beans beef, and I was like, you know what? I got nothing to be mad about. I was like, there's nothing to be angry about. And I saw Venom 3. I'm like, there's one.
There it is.
There's one.
No,
I'm not an angry person.
Oh. That's right. Keep telling yourself that. That's what all the angry people say at the angry people help groups. So fantastic.
I'm not in a help group.
All right, let's proceed. Real quick here, a little news roundup. Not a lot to recap over the last couple of weeks. Notably, however, it is official. Josh Brolin will not be Hal Jordan in the DCU. That is a relief. What is not a relief is that it hasn't changed DC's apparent posture with the age of person that they want to be in this role, because evidently, and this is more rumor, less certain, evidently Matthew McConaughey also rejected the opportunity to play the role of Hal Jordan. So again, we're going in that guys that are in their 50s, actors that are in their 50s, to take on the role of Hal Jordan. Therefore, difficult to project them in a 10-year fit, let's say, for this role. So I just got to say, has anybody thought of my guy, Chris Pine? Chris Pine, not old, okay, nor is he necessarily young, but I think he could hit that sweet spot in terms of the kind of person that, hey, he can play a character for a good decade and continue to live in it, so to speak. So Chris is firmly in his 40s at this point, which is fine. But by the time he would wrap up his decade's worth of a tenure, it'd be right about that right time to hang up the ring, so to speak.
He's
got a great demeanor for it. I mean, I'm a big fan of Chris Pine. So I'm just saying there are options that aren't in their 50s or 60s. Can we please try just a little bit harder?
Yeah, see, and I was looking because I was curious because I want to know who else was in the role like that was being considered, right?
Yep.
We had Matthew McConaughey being considered, and Ewan McGregor, who, as interesting as that would be,
still too old.
Still too old.
Yep.
I would love to see Ewan McGregor on the screen because we could all benefit from more Ewan McGregor.
Very much so.
We could. I love that man.
Yep.
But not as Hal Jordan.
Here's where I am. Here's where I'm a bit perplexed at this point with the DCU. Okay. If you're going to have, and we've talked about legacy characters recently, if you're going to have one of your legacy characters already be this far down his career path, because this clearly is not a Hal Jordan that is new to the ring. He's going to have been a Green Lantern for a period of time. Why are we picking up the story there? Like, what benefit is that to have already not shown decades worth, at least maybe decades worth of story for that character? I just find that choice so bizarre because we're bringing in an origin story for Superman. So we're getting a young Superman, but then we're getting an old Hal Jordan. The version of Batman we're getting has already obviously been around the block a little bit. He has Damian Wayne. That's the Robin that we're getting in the Brave and the Bold movie. So we've already missed a lot of Batman's time. I'm just having a hard time feeling terribly excited about where we're starting. And my heart and hands remain open because go ahead and prove it. It feels, here's what it's turning into. It feels like a New 52 take on the movies. Because the New 52, when DC Comics did its soft reboot or reset, you had this paradigm of young Superman, Batman that's been around for a while, Hal Jordan that's been around for a while, except Hal Jordan wasn't ancient. Sorry, Josh, but you're bro.
Don't apologize. You're right.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with him.
And it's one thing when you're doing it in the comics because all of us that are reading the comics, we haven't actually missed that time. We've actually been able to see those characters throughout the comics. When this is a set of movies with these specific actors and actresses playing these roles, that time is really precious. So I don't necessarily want to miss or be deprived of their stories. Now, maybe the workaround is, well, you can always do prequel movies and shows. Okay. Still not my preferred method. I'd rather go in a nice straight chronological order rather than coming back to the past. Well, but I just feel ill at ease. This just feels like one of those, hey, make the layup. And the layup is you're introducing all the characters at a very similar time in their respective careers. Doesn't have to be the origin for all of them, but let's keep it within a few year range here, not decades worth of difference. That again just feels like an alt universe take, which is what we already did with Zack Snyder. We already went down that road,
and it was not successful.
No, and it, again, in its own little bubble, fine, but the movies need to really lean into the source material for, hey, this is a definitive take on the character, not a particular director's alternate take. So I feel ill at ease.
I would have rather they have like how maybe he's been there for a year, then Jon Stewart comes in,
right,
and you still have like maybe Sinestro's overseeing both of them.
Yep.
Working together,
sure,
and then they find out that he's the bad guy, and that's how you get those two working together. Because I think their personalities are already like built in to disagree with each other consistently. Because Hal's going to do it his own way, John's by the book. Those two don't work together very well on paper. So and let that happen. And it sounds like on this they're just reversing the roles, and I'm like, but why?
Yeah, I don't know what the net gain is there, if any.
Like, Jon Stewart was the perfect soldier. That was like who he is as a character. Perfect soldier. He's going to go by the book if he can. And Hal's the guy who flies by the seat of his pants occasionally and somehow pulls it out. Always pulls it out of his tuchus.
Yep.
So I'm with you. I'm not a fan of that pick per se.
Yep. So again, a lot of time between now and when we actually get the Green Lantern show. Still don't have any official casting news. There's a lot of casting news we don't have. I mean, Batman, for example, as I mentioned earlier, Brave and the Bold, no idea who that Batman actor is going to be. Seems a bit odd, but hey, time will reveal all these things. We get closer and closer to learning more every day. So
it's crazy to think we have not had a Batman cast. We have not had a Wonder Woman casting. They haven't said anything about the Green Lanterns. They've been talking about it, but they haven't like officially landed on like Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
What's the other ones that were announced? I feel like all the castings are like oddly like thrown out, right? Like like the Booster Gold. Now I don't know if that's official, but it sounded like it was official.
It's not yet.
So maybe that isn't happening now, but it sounded like the Blue Beetle actor is the one who threw that out, that he got that role. So I don't know. But regardless, and things change. So I just feel like it's weird that we're getting those names over Wonder Woman and Batman.
Yeah.
And Green Lantern.
It's totally odd. We'll see how it plays out.
This is what happens when James Gunn's in charge. He picks the weird stuff first, okay? There's no reason Creature Commandos is kicking off the DCU. I'm sorry, there isn't. Him and Peacemaker. Peacemaker Season 2, and then Creature Commandos is what's kicking off. In what world? No one in their right mind would have picked that to be the starter.
Save that beef for the next pod. You're not wrong. But you're right.
Jeez, there is more in there.
There is more in there. There's more in there. Let's do a top 5, shall we? We do a top 5. Would you introduce our top 5 topic for today, Beans? It's time, ladies and gentlemen, for another classic JP and the Beans. Top 5.
Honestly, I'm still just in shock at how, like, there is more in there.
There's a lot of beef in that steak.
Our top 5 this time around, last second make, we said top 5 actors we'd see in anything as anyone. So these 5 actors that, if we saw them announced in the film, we're like, you know what? That sparks my interest.
Yep.
I would go watch that.
Yep.
Even if it doesn't make sense and they're playing a really weird role that you don't think would fit for them. Like some of these characters on my list, and we'll point that out, right? But you'd go see it. So that's the list. Do you want to start it off?
I would love to go first. My number 5 is Melissa McCarthy. She is a friggin' hoot. She is a dadgum treasure and a hoot. And every time I've seen Melissa in a movie over the last, decade, it's been incredible. It's been incredible. She's tremendous. She's tremendous. And it's not even close. She is freaking funny all the time. All the time. So I'm going to go see Melissa McCarthy. You got my money. That's my number 5.
Yeah, this is not how I thought this was going to go.
Wild card.
Something like that. My number 5 is Captain Jack Sparrow himself. I have Johnny Depp.
Okay.
Because this dude is able to, is a chameleon of sorts, and kind of just blend in there, but I'm like, you know what? Great actor. Right now, some of his stuff is too weird for me, so that's why he's number 5.
Yeah. He goes through these phases where he's on the oddball side.
His odd choice. I mean, his performance as Willy Wonka, for example, that's out there. Okay. Edward Scissorhands, never a movie I'm gonna go watch. Okay. So there's a couple ones where you're like, too weird.
Sure.
Alice in Wonderland. It's a Mad Hatter.
Yep.
Look, weird, but he was also good in it.
Sure.
So. Mainly it's Jack Sparrow, Johnny Depp. So I'm going to say Johnny Depp is my number 5. Now this is where it gets really good. Okay,
fantastic.
And number 4,
excited here.
Paul Rudd. If Paul Rudd's in the movie, I'm already intrigued because let's be real. Paul Rudd is an American hero. Okay, this dude could be in anything, and I'm going to go watch it because I don't think he's been bad in anything.
No, he's never been bad in anything. Even in bad movies and bad shows, he's been great.
And even when
he's been great.
here's the thing though too. He can also play a douchebag and make it work, or just a dumb idiot. Like I look at his role in we could go to Anchorman, fantastic.
Terrific.
We could go to where my whole thought process moved. Where was it? He was in Only Murders in the Building.
Sure.
That show. Sure. He was an absolute doucher in, and it was fantastic. Yeah. So I'm blanking out on the other ones that I had examples. Yes, that was it. Oh, he's a fantastic character in Bobby Newport. He just shows up in these random shows sometimes as this character. You're like, oh, this is perfect. Yep. So yes, thank you for that poll.
You're very welcome.
But yes, so that's my number 4, Paul Rudd. I see him in anything, and of course Ant-Man. So
that's great. My number 4 is Christian Bale. Dude's a straight up chameleon. Okay, and again, terrific. No matter what he's in. Obviously, most well known for his role in the Batman movies and the Dark Knight trilogy.
Where is he? Best Batman voice ever. Where is he?
I think where Christian Bale went to a next level for me was the movie The Fighter, where he was with Mark Wahlberg. So Mark Wahlberg, this is based on a true story. They are brothers. Mark Wahlberg is a aspiring champion boxer. Christian Bale is his brother, who is his trainer, and he is a drug addict. And his physical transformation was unbelievable. It's not the only time, of course, Christian Bale has done this, but the manner in which he totally fell into this particular character was surreal. Okay. And at the end, I'll never forget, at the end of the movie, credits roll, and we get a 30-second kind of a documentary shot, if you will, where the real live people that this movie and the story is based off of are just sitting side by side. So the two brothers are sitting side by side, talking back and forth, okay? And you get a fresh appreciation for how much Christian Bale nailed portraying this particular person in the movie. I mean, the real life person could not have been more Christian Bale that we just saw in the movie and vice versa. It was wild. So Christian Bale, my number 4. My number 3 is my guy, Chris Pine. He's fantastic. He's absolutely terrific. He's charismatic. He has a wry sense of humor that I really, really enjoy, whether it's the Star Trek movies, his role in the 2 Wonder Woman films. Hell or High Water is a personal favorite of mine, where he plays a little bit of a darker character, but no less terrific. I would go see the Dungeons and Dragons movie. Haven't yet, but simply because Chris Pine is in it.
It is not bad.
I would watch it.
It's not bad.
I'm sure it's entertaining. He's such a naturally entertaining dude, and he manages to pull it off without being over the top. He just seems to be able to present himself for who he is, and he crushes it every time. So Chris Pine is my number 3.
My number 3 is Nicolas Cage.
Wow.
Because let's be okay.
Wow.
Here's the point.
This is great.
First of all, this is what I said. Our lists are going to be completely different.
Yep.
First of all, him in National Treasure, those 2 movies.
Oh, they're great.
He's
fantastic.
Can we just say
he's a national treasure in them?
Correct.
Right?
Can we just say this, like, man to man, that we have been robbed by that not being in like a crazy good franchise? How the hell did we not get 3, 4? Yeah. We got 10 Fast and Furious movies, and we got only 2 National Treasures.
It's a great question. It's a great question.
Those are fantastic movies.
I think you can probably make a very direct and accurate correlation as to where our country really took a downturn, which is when we stopped getting National Treasure movies.
It's because it was probably accurate. They probably knew that there was actually, in fact, a map to treasure on the back of the Declaration of Independence. But that's a prime example, okay? Another thing, I always thought it was going to be ridiculous to see Nicolas Cage as Superman. But then you see it in The Flash, and you're like, you know what? I know it wouldn't be a good movie, but I would kind of want to see it.
Yep.
So you see Nicolas Cage, and you're like, I kind of want to see that just to see what it's going to be, because the dude just likes to act, right? He's doing this because he loves it, not because...
He just enjoys it.
Right, exactly. He played himself in a movie, and I haven't seen that yet, and I want to. It's on my list. The you know what movie I'm talking about, right? It's with him and Oscar, or not Pedro Pascal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very long title.
Correct. And I don't want to think of it. So
The Burden of Greatness or something to that extent. Yep.
So Nicolas Cage is number 3. Okay.
Number 3.
Now, number 2 is Danny DeVito. I would see Danny DeVito play anybody, anytime, because he would just be fantastic, okay? I really want him to voice Wario in the Mario movies. Like, that's my next bid, right? But he's so hilarious, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He was a great-looking penguin. Like, he's the perfect penguin, right?
No human being on Earth is a more comic accurate embodiment of Oswald Cobblepot than is Danny DeVito. Yeah.
Like, and then you also think about he voiced the satyr in Hercules.
Yep.
And I think he's going to come back and play the character live action if they do it live action.
Right.
Fantastic. Right? The dude, and I think genuinely he's a very good dude from what I understand.
Yeah.
So Danny DeVito is my number 2. Yeah. There's not a lot that I wouldn't see of Danny DeVito.
That's fantastic. Number 2. My number 2 is Denzel Washington. This guy's been doing it for decades, man. Decades.
It's so different.
Oh, very different. Very different. It's great. It's great. This is an all-time wonderful top 5. What blows me away, okay, about Denzel Washington is that, listen, he is no longer a spring chicken by age definition, and yet he continues to bring the same ferocity and energy towards every single role that he's in. And here's what's wild to me is when you see Denzel Washington in a movie, I don't think I could tell you what his characters' names are in the movies. I don't know if there is another person whose movies I see where I just go, that's Denzel Washington. Like if I watch The Equalizer, it's Denzel. It's like, what's his character's name? No, there's no character. It's just Denzel. Gladiator 2, the sequel we're all looking forward to later this year. It's Denzel and the Roman Empire. Just remember the Titans. That's Denzel. It's Coach Denzel. It's just incredible. The guy has this fascinating ability to just be who he is and have it be somehow a great fit in movie after movie after movie to where it's believable, it's not distracting, and it's wonderful to behold the whole stinking time. So that's my number 2 is Denzel freaking Washington.
If anybody wants to know what our personalities are like,
these lists.
You just leave this list. Honest to God, when I clip this as a top 5, just for the top 5, this is what you send them.
Yeah.
Because this is
it.
This is too accurate to our personalities. And you already know what your number 1 is.
I know what your number 1 is.
No, you don't.
Sure.
Did you look over it?
No.
You don't know who my number 1 is. Go ahead.
Really?
Go ahead.
My number 1.
Not for this.
That's fine. Okay. All right. I'm looking forward to maybe being surprised. My number 1 is George Clooney.
Yes.
Yeah. George freaking Clooney. The absolute, now silver, but once upon a time, golden fox. The guy can't be topped. Charisma, has it. Looks, has it. Range, has it. He is terrific in everything that he's in. He's been in some stinkers, okay? I've seen them all. He has been in some stinkers. Hello, Batman and Robin. But my guy acts his tail off every single time. He is tremendous. Everything that I just said about Denzel truly applies to my guy, George, okay? He's who he is, movie after movie. And yet, to George's credit, I think he shows more range at times than my guy, Denzel. And I don't mean that as a discredit to Denzel. I just mean it as a credit to George. Whether he's playing in a drama, an action movie, a thriller, he is perfect. George Clooney, number 1.
Now, you're probably thinking my number 1 is Ryan Reynolds.
100%.
Yes. Ryan didn't even make the list, which is hilarious. But
I feel like I've been lied to.
But also, like, let's be real. If I see Ryan on screen, yes, I'll go to the movie. But it's also like he's playing Ryan Reynolds. Like he's the same character all the time.
Yes.
So yes.
Okay.
Honest to God, if I redid this, Ryan would probably be on the list over Johnny Depp. Okay, we'd probably kick Johnny Depp out. We'd probably put Ryan at 3. Okay.
No take backsies.
My number 1
permanent.
Hey, my number 1 is Jack Black.
Wow.
There is not like I would see Jack Black and anybody. If they're like, hey, Jack Black is going to play Superman for the next 3 films. Let's see how it plays out. Do I know if it's going to be good? No, it's probably going to be shit. All right? But I'll go watch that any day of the week.
Oh my gosh.
I know it's stupid, all right? But, like, just think about he's so funny and whatever he's doing. I genuinely just think, like, if you just gave him a script, I think he would make it entertaining, even if he doesn't fit into that movie.
Yep.
Like, just genuinely just entertaining.
He's something else. He just is. Whereas, okay, I said earlier, right, that Danny DeVito is the perfect human embodiment of what Oswald Cobblepot looks like from the comics. Jack Black is the perfect human embodiment of, hey, show me an entertaining person. Right. And that's it. That's just it. Like, you just look at him and it's entertaining. He doesn't have to say anything else. Stand there, look at him, it's entertaining. And then he starts speaking. And then he starts acting or singing. And
singing voice?
Also incredible.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
You're like, outside of it, you're like, oh, this doesn't work. But at the same time you're listening, you're like, oh, this works really, really well.
It works.
But, like, think about it. Kung Fu Panda? That's Jack Black. Yeah. Right? Like, they crafted that character like, it's Jack. This has to go to Jack. It just does. Right? So, like,
there's no doubt.
Him as Bowser?
Yeah.
Remember when I was like, I heard that, I'm like, I am nervous. Because I just don't know if he can do it. And he nails it. He absolutely crushed it.
Yeah. No, Jack Black as Poe the Panda is in the same league as Robin Williams as the genie from the Aladdin movie, where...
Wow, that's high regard.
I mean it sincerely, though, because if you were to put anybody else's voice in the role of the genie, and they did that, because they made a second Aladdin movie, and they had someone else not named Robin Williams as the genie, garbage. And then they made the third Aladdin movie, brought Robin back, vastly, vastly better. You do the same thing with the Kung Fu Panda movie, there's nobody else that can do Poe the Panda. There's not. So he's a one of one.
Correct.
Jack Black. Wow, what a great pull. That's great.
I knew for sure we were not going to get spot.
I had Ryan Reynolds locked in as the number one for you.
Yeah.
Oh, what a surprise, but a pleasant surprise, nonetheless.
Well, there you go.
I love it.
That's our list.
I love it. Beans, you got anything else for us, Mike?
I think we wrap it up.
Take us home.
So, on that note, Godspeed.
Peace.